What's up, D1 Nation? Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Andy Vickers, coming to you from the place for the athlete, D1 Training. Got a fitness goal? Then our turf is your turf. D1 offers elite athletic training by expert coaches in classes or one-on-one sessions for members aged 7 to adult, as well as a strategic franchise model for those looking to up their professional game. Check us out online at d1training.com, d1franchise.com, or at D1 Sports on any of your favorite social platforms. Today's guest is Jason DeMelo. Jason joined D1 Training back in 2015 as the general manager of D1 Training North Shore. He later went on to manage D1 Training West NOLA and currently serves as the director of coaching at the home office, overseeing system-wide coaching curriculum. He holds a kinesiology degree with a focus on fitness and human performance from Southeastern Louisiana University. Jason's background includes playing football at the University of Southern Mississippi and Southeastern Louisiana, working with esteemed athletic directors and coaches, and earning certifications in speed, strength, and conditioning. His expertise extends to franchise and business management, leadership, and team building. Jason, man, let's dive in and start out by talking about what brought you to D1. We can also speak on, your previous athletics and what you learned through that you now carry over into your career today.
Oh yeah, this is a long conversation. So D1, I guess I first found out about D1 probably when it was about right when it first opened, probably in 2002 or somewhere around there when Will first started it. And I guess it'll take me back just a little bit. So I was in high school and I was training down here in Louisiana with a guy named Kurt Hester in Mandeville. And funny enough, he trained a lot of pro athletes, and he also trained combine athletes. And I happened to be in the gym one day, and we would try to go in when some of these combine athletes were training. And one day I'm in there, and there's this giant white fullback just in there hooping and hollering, and was quite impressive to a high school kid. I think if you don't know, I'm talking about Will Bartholomew, and he is probably his most jacked up stage of his life. And I guess I was probably he's a couple of years older than me, so he probably I was a senior in high school or going into my senior year, and he's in there training, and man, he was impressive.
So you saw him in his prime.
In his prime, yeah. And I remember going into the next year, going into college, he wrote guys would take a picture of themselves, getting to the NFL or whatever, So he had sent a picture of him at Tennessee, just whatever, the old school kneeling down with a football, and it said, "Thanks for getting me into the 4-4-4 club." And what that meant was he ran a 40-yard dash in a 4-4. He had a 40-inch vertical, and he bench pressed 225 40 times. And
I had no idea he was that fast.
Dude, he could fly. The guy could fly. Now, I mean, it takes a little bit of, playing speed is a little different than, what you can run at the combine,
Sure.
But he dipped into that 4-4. That's all that mattered, right? And he wrote it down on a piece of paper and sent it to Kurt. That's for sure. But so that's kind of the first time I knew who he was, and then I knew that a few years later, I'd played college football. I went to USM for a year, and then I transferred to Southeastern Louisiana in Hammond, and I played football there. I was a defensive back, and I knew at the end of my career that what I saw Kurt doing down in Louisiana with a program that it was called HS2, I knew that I wanted to do something like that. I was like, if I'm not, I think it took me about a year in college to realize that I was never going to play in the NFL. So I thought that, hey, what better to do than work with athletes, because I really enjoy it. And I think people that are in strength conditioning generally feel the same way. You hear these stories a lot, but I loved football. I love my sports that I played, track and field athlete as well. But I loved training. I liked preparing for them almost more than I liked anything else, and not a lot of athletes are like that, and so I knew that, like, hey, if there's something I'm going to do, it's going to be strength conditioning. And when I was done with college, some of my coaches asked me to stay and be a strength coach at Southeastern or coach football a little bit too. And I really wanted to start a family early. I got married right out of college, and I really just wanted to. My wife and I were like, I'm not sure I want to be in the life of traveling across the country. There's a lot of guys that are in, that tree, of strength coaches that I come from as far as mentors, and that are big time schools, and Alabama, Georgia, places like that. And it's like, yeah, it's going to take you 10 years to get there, but you could possibly one day make, $500,000 as a strength coach in college or the NFL. But that really wasn't the life that I was looking for. And at the time, this is like 2006, 2007, D1 was just getting off the ground. There were starting to be, some organizations that were like doing this sports performance thing in the private market. And it was just starting to become a thing. There wasn't a whole bunch of jobs. It was like, if you got out of school, it was going to be, you needed to either go be a personal trainer at a gym somewhere, or you were going to go coach high school football, or you were going to go to Texas and become that's a big thing you do. You go to Texas, become a strength coach in Texas, because they have strength coaches at the high school level. And you make good money, a good little salary right off the bat. And so for me, like, I really thought that the model that Kurt ended up later going to work for D1 and kind of opening. I mean, when he left, I think there was like 30 locations in the 2010, 11. And, I ended up kind of working for Kurt, and then eventually taking over his place after a few years. And I always there was a time where they were trying to open a D1 down here when Kurt was a part of D1. And we really thought it was going to happen. Like, they had an owner figured out, and man, we were excited because we would go down. Like, I had a separate company I worked for that I owned, and Will or Kurt would call us every year during the Manning Passing Academy and ask us to come down and help, because now we have 150 coaches that show up. But back in the day, they didn't have enough coaches across the country at D1s to come and do it. So I'd send coaches over there myself, and we'd get all kind of D1 gear. Everybody get all excited about D1. And it's just look at this shirt, look at the hat. I mean, it's a cool brand, Will did a great job of just like thinking this up, and taking that D1 experience, and just really bringing it to the private market. So that was a little bit of a long-winded story of how I fell in love with D1 and what it represents, and how you can tell that it's I'm a chip off the same block as what Will is, because what we learned from and where we came from were pretty similar. And that's why D1 to me, when it's time to go, I can make the switch easy.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I didn't know that you were exposed to it that early on, and definitely had never heard the story about seeing Will with a 4.4. That's gnarly.
Yeah.
But so from there, you get into the D1 system, you start working, and you end up taking over that location. How about where you're at now today? Just having opened your own facility, it's smashing it. You're kind of leading the way and showing us how to do it. How has that experience kind of changed just your appreciation for D1 now that you're in that ownership role and you essentially have a baby of your own?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, I had a stint with D1 when I was a GM in actually the same territory before it was a franchise. It was called D1 North Shore, and I knew the owner. He's a surgeon. He actually had done some surgeries on me, and we didn't partner up. He hired me. He bought me out of my company, and I remember going to meet with Will and Dan, and I was like, yeah, let's do this. So it was about a 3-year stint at the time. And then at the very end of it, they were transitioning to the franchise model. And so at the time, I got another opportunity at a hospital down here, and I went and worked for a hospital system for about 5 years. And then, Will called me up one day, and oddly enough, I was golfing, which I never really do, but I was playing golf and he calls me, so I had time to answer the phone. It was a charity golf tournament, so they didn't really need my help. I was I was just losing balls anyway. So I took off. Love to hear from Will. And he's like, "Hey, would you ever think about coming back to D1?" It's like the first thing he tells me. He's like, "We're rocking and rolling. Like we've got it figured out." That's what he told me on the phone. We've got it figured out. And I was like, "Sure, I'm always, I'm interested in anything." So he flew me up to Nashville. And kind of took me through the process. And like, I did a recruiting day with them and just did a little bit of an interview. And this is really for like a home office team job. And when I was done, we talked on the following Monday, and I was like, man, I really want to own. Like, I'm interested in this job, but like, I think you do have it figured out. And I think I'm at the stage of my life where it's like, hey, I need to get into ownership of something if I'm going to move on. And clearly him and I had a good relationship and trusted each other and our training styles and like how we run business and, just family and faith and things like that. So we had, a lot in common. And so I was like, if I did this, could I own? And he's like, absolutely. He's like, I own 10 of my own, and so I end up, not at that time, they were like, hey, we're going to wait until the end of the year to actually hire this position as a director of coaching. But, we'd still we'll keep you in touch with you. Well, I end up calling him like 3 or 4 days later. And it was more of, I texted him, I said, hey, I need more of the advice. Like, I need some career advice. And so like, it's kind of funny when you ask Will those things, kind of guy he is, he puts a different voice on, and he really just kind of poured into me and like what I was going through, where I am in my life and things like that. And laid it out for me. And I was like, yeah. And I decided right then and there that I was like, I'm going to own a D1. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And so we kind of put this master plan together. Josh Hill was opening a D1 down in New Orleans, D1 West NOLA. And he was having trouble finding a GM. I trained him when he was playing for the Saints. And so I kind of talked to him. Will talked to him. He's like, hey, how about we do this little hybrid role where you can work part-time for the training panel and help us with our programming. And you can run this D1. In the meantime, you can open your own D1. And so that's what I did. I went and worked for D1 West NOLA, transitioned back into that it took me about 9 months from the start of that to open up D1 Mandeville, hired another GM down there that had worked with me in the past. D1 West NOLA's crushing it right now.
It's an awesome facility.
It's a great facility. We went into D1 Mandeville, hired another GM of mine that I've had work with in the past. She was fantastic. We got in and, broke pre-sales records down here. I mean, talking about opening up a D1, like if I had a dream, it was owning my own franchise or just D1 gym or gym altogether. But making it D1 to me was like, hey, this makes it a lot easier. Like, my strengths are this, and this, and the things that I wasn't good at, I could lean on a franchise. And that's why I love the franchise system, is to be able to, sure. It's a proven system that you can just lean on. And that's what I did. I leaned on a system. I took the knowledge that I had already had, and it made for a recipe for success in the first 3 months that we've been open.
Certainly have proved it. And I think it speaks volumes for our business model as a whole, just that we have so many members of home office team that own facilities.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let's pivot from ownership into director of coaching. Let's talk a little bit more about what you do for home office on a daily basis on that side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So the director of coaching, there's a lot of parts that we do. The main thing is we need to make sure that we're delivering the workout to our franchisees. And so number one thing is we have a panel of coaches across the country, typically about 4 to 5 coaches. And these coaches will program the 8 cycles that we write throughout the year. And that's going to be for all core 4 workouts, your rookies, Devo, prep, and the adult programming. And so we deliver that through our team builder application so that they can get it at each facility, and so that members can have it right in the palm of their hands, and the coaches can see it and deliver it to their athletes. So that's number one. And the reason why we have a panel in that way and not just one person, I mean, look, I could sit there and write workouts all day long for everyone, but we want to have a variety of workouts from people and a panel of great coaches, great D1 strength coaches across the country that have, altogether like 20 years, 30 years of experience with this group in D1. So we have some of these guys that have been around for 10 years, some of them 11 years, and I've been around it for almost 20 years this year. And so it's just good to have a group of guys and girls that we can just run things off of, and come up with a really good product. And then we'll take, criticism from different coaches across the country, getting together with them on feedback on the workouts, how we can make them better, things like that. So that's really number one, making sure that we can deliver that product to our franchisees.
Yeah, and I think the panel is huge to emphasize with that as well, just that we're always welcome to feedback and we're continuously, in an improvement mindset. And I also think it's great to have, people weighing in across the country because we have an allocation of different athletes with specific sports, really market by market.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing, and I mean, we continue to grow on that front as well. Like we try to take the strengths of each one of them, like some of them are, specialty in track and field, some of them have more specialties in football, baseball, rotational sports. And so, we're continuing to grow and put together, small workouts that you can use for personal training as well. So that, fresh new coaches, we have close to 600 coaches across the country, and so you get a lot of young coaches in the door that like aren't super strong at programming right away, and something that's really important for, I think a program like ours. And the reason why we are, based off of a Division I college strength and conditioning program is we program for people. We don't just come in the door and write a workout in the morning for John, who's a cyclist, and is, riding 20 miles a day, but wants to do some strength training. We write a program specifically for that, weekend warrior is what we will call it. We're going to write a program for the weekend warrior specifically for him in that personal training setting, and so that's important. Like you can't just come in and write a workout on the board that day and not think of anything, because look, any of us could do that. Andy, you could come over here and I could write a workout for you and it would be good that day, but as far as progression goes, like we have to have a start. We need a test at the beginning, and then we need a test at the end of the cycle so that we can see that this person is getting better, and so that's what, the training panel tries to put together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's really cool how data driven we are to see the results throughout programming. Even on the home office side, we're such a data driven company because you really don't know where you're headed if you're not constantly checking on it. So I always love to hear that.
That's it.
KPIs, baby.
That's it. Run the KPIs. There's more that, so the training panel for myself too, like we're constantly updating, and you brought up equipment, which is a good point, technology. So I'm constantly trying to figure out what's the next and greatest piece of technology that we can use, so like updating how we program and the programs we use, updating our timing systems and force plates, and trying to figure out what is applicable for us, right? What can we actually use at a D1? Because it's not just me and one person all the time. It's a big class, and or a group, and we need to be, or a team, like, so we need to be able to use this equipment on a large scale. It's got to be scalable. So I'm doing a lot of that. I'm constantly testing new equipment that we can bring into the facility that's cost effective and that we can utilize in our programming. And, outside of, the majority of what we do at D1 is free weights, so we don't have a whole bunch of machines and things like that. We don't have a whole bunch of space for that kind of stuff because we're typically a weight room and turf. And that's where we get most of our work done. So it's specific equipment, and we utilize that equipment for adults and athletes. Um, Another part of what we do is education, so being the director of coaching, we try to help educate our coaches. One, we through some of our onboarding systems that we have a lot of modules that we can put together for our coaches across the system to be able to onboard. So we help them onboard so it takes a little bit off of the head coach's plate. And I can tell you, like, running a facility without a D1, you have to spend a lot of time with a brand new coach, So I'm spending, probably 25 hours with a brand new coach coming in the door, because you want them to understand your culture. You want you to understand your systems and all the things, the way it works, your pricing, your all that type of stuff. Well, with D1, you hire a coach, you get them into our playbook, and they're going to watch all the modules to be a coach. And same thing for a GM, same thing for a front desk person, all that. But specifically for a coach, it's going to be a little bit longer, because you're throwing some sciences in there and things like that. And we're not taking all the responsibility off of the head coach, but that is something that we're constantly updating to make sure that it's relevant, right? And we're constantly trying to make it easier. And if you can imagine, as we're growing, you have to scale things, right? And so, like, it was easy at first, and I was there where there was 30 D1s, and I was a part of the training panel back then in 2008 or 9, when the first training panel was put together. And we literally would get every single coach on in the system. Like, that was a no-brainer, right? 30 locations were on, and the GM, the head coach, would be on there. And that was the conversation, before it was a franchise. And so we spent a lot of time talking through it and trying to, make sure that we're all on the same page. Well, now it's you can't do that. You're not going to get 120, and before you know it, we'll have 500 locations. You have to be able to scale this, and that's why we're constantly trying to make it easier for people to get the information they need, and be able to scale it in a large way.
Yeah, and that's massive with investors that I speak to on a daily basis. They ask, how do I train my staff? How much do y'all help? And want to kind of tell them about the resources that we have. That always eases, that anxiety of, how the heck am I supposed to do this if I'm not a strength and conditioning coach myself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then also, it'd be cool to talk about our annual coach summit every year with Manning Passing Academy and at the Saints facility. Just how much time and effort is put into really upskilling these coaches. I was super impressed. I've been out of the coaching world for many, many years, but it was, I felt like I was getting sharpened just being in that environment. And then seeing all of the equipment and new technology that we were testing in the Saints facility was really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. So, and I kind of mentioned this earlier when I was talking about Will calling me back in the day to go down to Manning Passing Academy. So, MPA is what we call it, but Manning Passing Academy, which is basically the Manning brothers and Archie Manning, their father. They have a camp down here in Nichols. So those of you that don't know, the Mannings played down here at a Newman High School down in New Orleans, because their dad played for the Saints, and this is kind of where they settled. And every year they started, I guess it's been 30 years now. They started a passing academy for, you get receivers, basically all your offensive players other than your line. And there's about 1,200 now to, I don't know, maybe even more than that, 1,300 athletes that come to this camp down in Nicholls State. And it's usually the same time, the last weekend in July. And some time ago, we decided that since we were getting all these coaches down here, that we could use this as an opportunity to educate, and early on it was a small group. So we could really get intricate into the details and stuff like that. And then over the years, it's grown so much, and so we spend, the training panel and I and home office team, we spend, a lot of hours preparing for this workout. The workout and for the conference itself. And we try to bring in, look, people listen to us all the time, and I feel the same way, but they listen to me and someone from the training panel all year long. We're presenting things, Zoom, things like that. we want to make this an opportunity to bring in professionals outside of D1 to come and pour into us. And this year specifically, we really leaned into our vendors and some of the vendors that we were looking to bring on board and let them like showcase their knowledge and then how to use technology. Because I think all of us would agree. I mean, the fact that we're even sitting on this podcast in two different states and doing it together, that shows the technology that we're in today in 2024. So we're always trying to add things, especially in strength and conditioning, in technology. So the timing lasers, the force plates that we're able to test while we're there, bringing these coaches through a rotation. We brought in Matt Bruce, who's an ex-Olympian, Olympic lifter, and from Baton Rouge. He came in and did a presentation. I mean, on Olympic lifting, and I mean, they loved it. We did that rotation, the hands-on rotation, and really got to visit with some of these vendors and professionals and ask them questions and be able to really talk to them. And then each one of these guys kind of did another presentation in front of the whole group with more of the PowerPoint setting and whatnot. And so you get a mix of strength coaches. Really, you got coaches that are really into like just getting fired up and just sweating and just being getting out there and grinding. And then you have a good mix of coaches that really want to educate themselves and they love educating others. And so I like to find both of those groups, right? So I can have people that are helping me educate other coaches, right? And then I have to find the ones that, hey, I know you think you know everything, right? You think you have it all together, but hey, let's continue to learn and get better. You gotta be moving forward. We gotta be trying to figure out if there's something new. We can't be so set in our ways that we can't change something. And so, this year's Coach Summit was just fantastic. We had a great showing. Went down to Nicholls State, did our 1,200 athlete rotation of training athletes. Got a nice picture with the Manning brothers. Then we went to the Saints facility the next day. Just really cool to get into a professional, indoor facility, meeting room, things like that. Really nice place. Spent a lot of time there too, and so I think people really enjoy that as well. So I mean, look, we're just going to keep growing. I think we had 130 people show up this year across the system, and that's just GMs, owners, and coaches. And we had something for everyone there. So very, very important to continue to educate, across the system, even with, franchise summit coming up. We get a lot of coaches that come to that as well. And so we'll spend a little time there, trying to help these coaches learn something while they're there as well in Nashville. So.
Yeah, no, it was an awesome experience. I was fortunate enough to get to tag along and I learned a ton. So let's talk a little bit about like, when we're thinking of developing an athlete and specifically a scholastics athlete, how much do we invest in also developing their character, things off the field, like getting them into our culture and our environment? How much do you think that affects their life from a 360-degree view?
Yeah, I mean, character is huge. I mean, I think that especially, at D1, it's one of our core values is to have D1 character, and that can be associated with a whole bunch of different things. And I think that the main thing is when we try to hire character. And so when you hire character, the character just shows up, and in coaches. And I think everybody has a story of some sort where you have a coach that just breathed some life into you, and it made you go, man, this guy really cares about me. I mean, for me, it was Kurt Hester, was a strength coach, right? Who I look for this to me, this is character right here, right? I'm a kid that's like, I came to him. I raised a bunch of money in the one summer to work because I wanted to go work out with this guy when I was a sophomore, I guess, really young. And it was a lot of money for me, $200 or whatever it was back then, and I paid it. And then when I was done, I went up to Mr. Hester and I was like, Coach Hester, like, I really appreciate it. I'm not going to be able to train anymore because I don't have the money. And he pulled me in his office. He's like, come over here. He pulled me in his office and he said, I want you to stay in the gym. and you're going to sweep some floors for me, and you're going to mop, and you're going to do this and that, and you're going to help me bring other people in the gym, things like that. And that right there was just massive, right? Because
Yeah.
I was not going to be in the gym anymore, and this guy believed in me enough, and that's character. I mean, I'm not telling people to just give away their product, right? But it's one of those things that spoke to me. It was like, look at this guy, like he cares about how I'm doing, how I'm performing. And so, it doesn't take a whole bunch when you're coaching, um, to build these guys up, to give them an inspiration while they're coaching, talk to them about pushing and working hard, and talk to them when you're cooling down at the end of the workout. Like, talk to them about, hey guys, everyone else is at home right now, right? Watching TV, doing whatever, right? And you're here putting in the extra work, like perseverance, like throwing the words out there, integrity, right? Having passion, like talking to these athletes during their workout about driving, because we all know, I mean, there's a reason why not everyone plays a sport. There's a reason why not everyone is in the gym pushing it. It's because they don't have that drive. And so the number one thing to me is the coach, it usually is a high character person as a coach. And if they're not, they kind of sniff their own way out, right? Because people can see right through that. And people follow character. I guarantee you can look across the country, best strength coaches in the country, they're not following jerks. They're following the character coaches that are driving and motivating them to be a better part of themselves and to reach their goals.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I think that every coach, every great coach that I've always looked up to has always emphasized, I want to turn you into a great human, and sports is a piece of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I want to also talk about your balance of your massive family and everything that you do career wise. How do you do it, man? We all look up to it in home office for certain.
Yeah. So those of you out there, I'm married. My wife Frankie and I have been married for 18 years this summer, and we have 7 children. I have one girl, a 17-year-old. Her name is Regina. And then I have 6 boys. Luke, he's 16. He is a sophomore in high school. He's playing football right now, so that's really cool to see. Actually, he has his first scrimmage tonight, varsity scrimmage tonight. And he comes out yesterday. He plays JV and sophomore, so he plays JV and varsity. And yesterday he comes out with 2 jerseys, because he's going to play varsity too. So he's got number 80. He's a receiver. He didn't really want number 80, but he has number 80. And then he comes out. He's at the same high school that I went to. And then he comes out and he has another jersey. I was like, "You have 2 jerseys?" He's like, "Yeah." And he shows me the jersey, and it's my high school football number. And so I was like, "Oh, I went back in and told the head coach, I was like, got a little tear came down." So that's my 2 high school kids. And I was telling you earlier, my son Jude just turned 13 today. So I got 3 teenagers. My son Sebastian, he's 10. And then I have 3 younger ones, a 6-year-old named Jeremiah, a 4-year-old named John Michael, and Zachariah is 2 or just about to be 3. And so that rounds off my family, my home life, and actually my father-in-law also lives with us too, and we have 2 dogs. So it's a busy life. And look, I guess like my wife, when you have 7 kids, your wife, her job is a stay-at-home mom, which is more of it's literally there's no time. You have no vacation days, no PTO for a stay-at-home mom. So it's beautiful to see her home with the kids. We homeschool as well. We have like a classical program that we do where they go a couple of days a week. Faith is a huge part of our lives. So like, family time is big, and so I think that balancing that is huge. Being able to put the phone down for the weekend and trying to be present. Just like I say this all the time to my wife, when I come to home office for operator training to help other franchisees, I tell her, I'm like, hey, you can text me, I'll get back to you, but I'm going to be present while I'm there to those franchisees and GMs that are learning. And it's the same thing when I come home, like I got to put my phone down. I mean, we're in that day and age where if you got your phone in your pocket and it buzzes, it's like neurons start firing in your head and you're just like, who's trying to talk to me? I gotta look, and so like go put it up somewhere when I get home. I mean, I always I literally, it's a little different now because I work from home. But when I used to come home on a regular basis, I would drive home and I'd park in the right in front of my house, and I would sit there for a second. I'd take a deep breath, and I'd say a little prayer and just say, all right, Lord, just let me focus on these kids when I come in the door and let me put this thing aside. Deep breath, and then I walk in the house, and because you got to be, there's 7 kids and they're all like, especially the 10-year-old and below, I'm not the teenager's favorite person anymore, but the 10-year-old and below, 13-year-old and below, like they want to see their dad, and they're like telling me the stories about today. It's like, imagine 6 boys just running up to me like, hey dad, I did this, I did that, and you got to be present. And I mean, I love it. It's not an accident to have 7 kids. It's like, this is what we were called to do. And like, so we love it, man. We're building up this little army, and I love every day of it. It's a little stressful at times, and we spend a lot of times taxiing kids around to ballparks and stuff like that. And they're all D1 members. My wife, she goes at 5:15 every morning. I mean, she is in it. I'll stay home, get the kids ready, have some quiet time, and drink my coffee. And she's over there work. She's like my spy too, so you can tell me what's going on in the gym and how good the workout was that day, and whether I should go to the 9 o'clock class or not, if it was too hard.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, let's wrap up with I would love to have one little nugget from you. Just if somebody's out there wanting to pursue a career in coaching or perhaps gym ownership, what's a little bit of advice that you could give them to inspire them to take that step and pursue that?
Oh, absolutely. I'll start with the coaches, man. It's been 15 years of mentoring coaches for me. And I am a huge advocate for strength and conditioning in the private market, like creating jobs like this job and the last job I was at. To me, it was like, I am creating jobs for people, for coaches coming out of college that want to be in fitness and want to be in strength conditioning, but don't want to go to the local college or spend all that time working for free, whatever it is. And I want them to have a job, and I want to help them. I've talked to numerous coaches that are looking to get into it, having conversations with them about, I mean, serious stuff like, hey, I got a degree and I want to use it, but my parents are telling me there's no money in this, and it's going to take this amount of time. And I'm like, well, look, here's the routes you can take. You can go to college, which that's fine. It's not made for everybody, but you can go into college. You can go into the high school strength conditioning world. You got to find the right places to go. If you're going to go into college, you're going to spend some time traveling across the country and, working 80-hour shifts, for, really when it comes down to it, it's about $2 an hour, it seems like. But you can jump in there and find some good mentors and like tag along with somebody and spend some time. And, I've had a lot of conversations and interviews over the years with coaches coming out of that realm, and just really just feeling a breath of fresh air, because like you said, there's a home life balance when it comes to being a strength coach in the private market. We care about people, we care about family. Not that colleges don't, but that's just a different lifestyle. I mean, when you get into college sports altogether, that's going to be your life for at least the season or whatever you're doing. So there's nothing wrong with it. But for me, like I tell anyone, you email me, call me, I will talk to you all day long about the fruits that come from being a strength conditioning coach and being in this profession. Like, and I tell people all the time, like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's truly how I've felt for the last 20 years. Yeah, there's stressful moments in there. There's stressful moments in anything. But I think that this job, there's so much fruit to watch an athlete grow and be successful, to watch a coach grow and be successful, I can't tell you how many coaches I've taken from internship. One was an intern for me in high school and then is now working for me, 15, 20 years later. I had another one, my GM right now. She interned for me when she was in college. and now she's a GM, like all the way through, you know? So I love it. I love watching people grow. I love one of the reasons why I love this position is because I can talk to coaches and give advice and try to keep people in this job and teach them where the next step is for them to grow. I mean, there's a lot of growth within just the D1 system, but even in strength conditioning as a whole. And then as far as an owner, I think that being an owner myself and being through the ups and downs of different companies, and it was a no-brainer to me to get into something that I loved every day. And then leaning on D1 and the experiences that they've had over the years with growing, I really leaned into that. And I could tell you, like, the success that I've had in the last 3-4 months as we've been open has been because I've leaned on a system that actually works, you know? And so I continue to lean on it. The people in the system that are really good at what they do. And I know, like I know who's good at, you know, training. I know who's good at, lead generation and who to talk to and say, like, okay, I'm going to lean on this staff. I'm going to ask all the right questions because I want to do it right, you know? And so if someone's thinking about getting into a D1 franchise, I'd say, take a shot, come check us out, come to a recruiting day if you can, and see if this is something for you. I think I've been to a recruiting day where a potential new owner comes in that's not just so excited about what we're doing, because I mean, you come to them, it's just like, we're having fun,
The
like
hype is real.
it's real. Like, we're not faking it, like we're like this all the time. We're happy to be here. And it's like, man, get into something that you love. And there's nothing wrong with other franchises. It's just so cool. And it's that you're able to give back to the community, to the people you're around. You can watch people grow. You can get down on the minute level of the 7-year-old that has, confidence issues, who comes into your gym and now he's super confident by the time he's, 10 years old and playing sports. Maybe he's never going to be, in the NFL, but just to build confidence for that 7-year-old, to an adult, watching an adult lose 60 pounds over a year of programming and just becoming a part of a community and a family at D1, to then, if I'm owning this thing, I get to hire all these great people, be around it, create my own family of D1 character coaches, right? And staff. It's just, I can't say enough about what D1 has brought to my life, and really just resonated with who I already am,
Sure.
It's just like, okay, I'm home. Like, these people get me. They're my kind of people.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the rare times in life where you can make a living and make a difference at the same time. All right, Jason. Well, we'll wrap it up there. I appreciate you coming on, man. And I look forward to sending you my carnivore lunch here in a little bit through Slack.
Sounds good.
Have a good one.
All right, later.
The D1 podcast is proudly brought to you today by D1 Gear Store. Visit gear.d1training.com for all of your D1 swag needs. D1 Training is the place for the athlete. If you have a fitness goal, we'll help you get there. Visit d1training.com to find the closest D1 turf near you, and be sure to check us out at D1 Sports on all social platforms. If interested in bringing a D1 facility to your community, please be sure to check out d1franchise.com for more information. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share the show. Thanks. The information provided on this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not guarantee any specific level of earnings or financial success. Results may vary based on numerous factors. Any earnings or income statements are hypothetical. D1 Sports Franchise LLC and its affiliates, the hosts and guests of this podcast, are not liable for any losses or damages related to the use of the information provided. This information is not intended as an offer to sell or the solicitation of an offer to buy a franchise. An offer is made only after a disclosure by a franchise disclosure document, also known as an FDD.